Hi, everybody. This is Chloe Hudson with World Peace Projects. Thank you so much for joining me. So today I wanted to expand a bit on the understanding that we tapped into in the last video, the New Age 4.4. I want to talk about the space of surrender, what I like to call the null point. And what inspired this video is a gentleman named Tommy Truong, I hope I'm pronouncing your last name correctly, messaged on the last video. He says, when you spoke about being too passive and opting out, I thought of Alan Watts. In one of his lectures, he talks about Wu Wei, or non-action, and how it allows the natural divine flow, the Tao, to take its course. He also elaborates and says that do-gooders are futile in their acts because it's coming from the mind of the ego. Do you think this is a part of the Psyop? Eckhart Tolle's teachings have the same flavor of allowing what it is. What do you think of these teachings? Okay, so in the last video, just a little summation, we were talking about a Psyop of the new age that has been upgraded, and a foundational component of the Psyop is the perspective that people take a more expanded viewpoint of creator source in regard to neutrality. There is no good or bad, there's no right or wrong, this kind of thing. And I was speaking about how, for me, this is a dangerous perspective because I don't perceive that humans have the ability to grasp and experience the creator source experience from that level. And in addition, if left unchecked, it works to pacify people enough where they begin to opt out of their responsibility of cause and effect, this type of experience. So this is an interesting topic, Tommy, because there's a channel on YouTube that I used to watch, Theoria Apophosia, and this gentleman taught on one of his videos, which I also talk about a lot in my teachings, is the null point in magnetics. So if you take a magnet, you know, we've got the positive and the negative polarity of any magnet, right? And he speaks about if you slice this magnet 1,000 times into tiny little slivers, you have 1,000 magnets, right? Suddenly you have 1,000 magnets with their positive and negative polarity. And then when you take the opposite polarity two opposite polarity magnets and you work to magnetize them to one another, it appears to us that the magnet is magnetizing to the opposite polarity magnet. But in actuality, what's happening is there's an invisible null point in between the two magnets that these two magnets are simultaneously magnetizing to. So the midline, basically, where the polarity shifts from negative to positive, is a null point. It's a space of complete neutrality. It's antimatter, in my opinion. And if we are to equate that into an emotional experience, that's surrender, that's acceptance, that's the frequency of allowance. Exactly what you're speaking about here, how, you know, the Taoists speak of the divine natural flow, the Wu Wei, you know, whatever you want to call it. So in my perspective, from that understanding, the most magnetic thing in existence is that null point, is that Wu Wei, is that divine flow that the Tao speak of. And that's very important to cultivate, or at least remember that that's your center in your being, right? So when I was thinking about your question, Tommy, it brought to mind, the only way I could explain it is for any of those who have ever danced in some kind of a partner dancing, especially, like, I guess what comes to me is salsa, because that's my most common type of partner dancing. Well, when one is tuning in to their experience of as a female, I follow the lead, right? The male's going to lead. And as the follow, it's important for us to be in a state of allowance so that you can feel the rhythm, and as opposed to thinking it. But at the same time, it's a requirement to have a bit of resistance There's an active resistance, not too much, so that when my partner comes to lead me, I've got enough resistance with hand pressure and maybe body posture that I'm not just a limp noodle. I can follow the lead, but at the same time, I'm in a space of neutrality so that I can feel the energy. I can feel that divine flow that you're speaking about, Tommy. So there's an intriguing balance with the surrender, the acceptance, and the resistance at a certain level at the same time. You know, and we can think of that resistance if we're speaking about accessing that neutral space, the Wu Wei, the Taoist divine flow, the null point, whatever you want to call it. That is a space of allowance. And then your body in matter holds that resistance already. To experience form is to have some amount of resistance in action happening in order for that form to exist, right? So this understanding is a base foundation of our existence. Now, if we're to take that, like a lot how we talk about, there's certain things that are true, that are, you know, fundamental natural laws, universal laws. And then we see these things in their original form taken and inverted or morphed or manipulated, right? And that's what happens with these psyops is, again, as we spoke of, they will take a half truth and create a half fallacy. So there's enough familiarity and understanding of it that component makes it feel safe enough to continue on with. Now, the specific teaching that you speak about where Alan Watts is saying that, you know, the do-gooders are futile in their acts because it comes from the mind of the ego. I haven't seen that talk, so I'm unclear if he's speaking specifically to those that are, you know, taking action of doing good, service to others, but through an egocentric experience or basis, because that is a very different state. I think that most things are selfish in nature. There's just levels of selfishness. So when you get to a space where you have elevated and expanded your egoic experience so much that you're no longer just working to cover your base needs, regardless of the consequences of these actions, such as a child. A child doesn't know. A child needs their base needs met. They don't know nor care at that point that they're crying for an hour straight is really frazzling and blowing the adrenals of their parents, right? Their ego is focused on base need, right? They haven't expanded into that human experience yet to learn how to work with that and counter those needs in regard to others and how their actions affect other experiences around them. So when we're working from a place of service to others that is authentic and heart aligned, that's still selfish action, because that is something that fulfills us. That is for us often. You know, we do that because we want to help. That makes us feel good about life, right? That's still selfish, though that's an expanded experience of selfishness. Selfishness, just like a lot of terms like manipulation, can get coined with a negative connotation. You know, I'm going to manipulate this keyboard to write a message. That doesn't mean manipulation is negative, though it's a tool, it can be utilized that way. Though when people are moving through their egoic mind, as you're saying, in a way to do good or serve others, then that level of selfishness can be a whole different frequency or experience. Because often, you know, the range of that tends to be if they're working for some kind of maybe passive narcissistic means where they require the gratification and, you know, whatever attention may be brought to them for doing good, right? Or on the other end of the spectrum, they could be working through what I like to call a martyr experience, which is very much in the same frequency range as victim. And therefore they give of their energy, which is depleting to others, which is not balanced. So therefore, it isn't assisting in the way that maybe they are hoping that that energy of doing good is offering. So, you know, that we have to be very careful here, because there's a very fine tipping point with all of these types of learnings, and then the way that gets taken into something that is blown out into a psyop, or something that is authentic in nature when one is working to assist and support. I work to cultivate the null point and that surrender as much as possible. That understanding was profound to me when I learned that about magnetics, because I am very intrigued with my electromagnetic frequency, and I work with my Taurus field, which is something we worked on the last Quantum Access Pod last Tuesday. Is we tuned into our mesentery, our Dantian, and our Taurus field to work to really own that experientially, because that's the way in which we are experiencing and manipulating our frequency. Today, Tuesday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, for our second installment of this Quantum Access Pod, it's a class, $12. You're welcome to sign up. worldpeaceprojects.global on my shop page. We're going to take 1 hour, and today we're going to build on last week's class, and we're going to look into the experience of interoception. So experiencing your body from within. Accessing that null point and that surrender state is quite difficult when we start to work with it, especially in Western culture. You know, just like working to calm and silence the mind, if that has not been a base foundation of your upbringing and your experience, it takes a lot of surrender to get to the space where you can even access the ability to let go of the energies of chaos, and then move into some kind of stillness or center point, and then from that space begin to navigate. And in my opinion, that space of finding your wu wei, your divine flow, your null point, the space of surrender, is where you meet in your intimate relationship with yourself as spirit. And from that space is where you have the most authentic and clear and pure access to frequencies, to your clear abilities, to understandings, to conceptualizing, to experiencing, what have you. The more we access that and can utilize that space in our being just on a whim, which takes practice, like all things do, right? It's just a different type of practice. It's not a mental practice. It's moving as very far away from your mind as you can get before you hit your extremities, really. We'll pull you out of your mind into your mesentery, which just sits there at your sacral chakra. And you're feeling this, experiencing this from the inside. And then you're navigating like a honing beacon, right? You're registering like a satellite from that space. And this is the safest, most potent, powerful place in my experience to access spirit from. And these types of techniques can be cultivated. And when we begin to work with them, profound things start to happen. Because first of all, the information you access, it's yours. You're accessing it from your true center point. And then you can start to understand what is your authentic frequency, or what in you are you experiencing within your being that feels counterproductive, or, you know, maybe opposes something else in you. And by doing that inside your being, because that's a very intimate experience and it's quite an internal inside process, you very quickly start to understand what is you, what is not. You clean the closet. And then when you move back into engaging in your external world, when you've grounded your understanding and experience of your frequency, it's so much easier. I mean, exponentially easier to understand what frequencies are coming at you, what's yours, what's not, what you resonate with, what you don't. when it's chaotic and you need to clear the energy away. It's a really powerful lesson. So you're welcome to join us tonight at 8 p.m. If you can't make the class in live time, I would love for you to make it. I love connecting with you guys on Zoom, through video, though all of these classes are recorded, so you can purchase it now and I'll send it to you after I've uploaded the video. Anyhow, so I hope that this brings some clarity, because there is a very important place of cultivating and connecting and experiencing that null point, that state of surrender. Though that is an experience that doesn't necessarily, in my opinion, call truth to perceiving the entirety of this multiversal existence from a place that deems the lack of polarity at a certain level is best suited to throw away, basically. Because I think that one of the more long-standing psyops that have been playing out, you know, in religion, in spirituality, in a lot of these philosophical understandings, in certain theologies, what have you, is becoming so passive, where you're out of balance, just like anything, right? You're too aggressive, you're out of balance. You're too passive, you're out of balance. To a place where, you know, when action is being taken in front of you, or experiences are happening in front of you, where you have an opportunity to make your frequency known, that that isn't something that you align with, or that you desire to be, you know, instigated further into the experience of your reality. If you don't step up to own your truth and make that known, you are like a leaf in the wind. And just like we're seeing now with those of us that perceive and know that this experience is a pandemic of mass distraction, when we don't step up and take action, and we're too scared to stand out, and there's tons of fear mongering, then the whole world moves along with it, do what they're told, you know, and that can lead to some very dangerous places. We've seen that many times in history. We've all experienced that on some level in our life. So, you know, I've said for a long time that to move more into your creatorship is to take mass amounts of responsibility. One must be so accountable and culpable for their experience, what it is they're creating, how they're affecting, or how they're not. And that's a scary thing to do. You know, that's why, in my opinion, one huge reason that cognitive dissonance and disassociation is such a crippling and, you know, that is an epidemic, in my opinion, because it's very scary to take responsibility and face what is, and then process that, and then, you know, rise up and then move forward with making change, right? So I hope that answers your question, Tommy. I hope to see you guys this evening at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Zoom. You can check out that class for 12 bucks on worldpeaceprojects.global on my shop page. You have a wonderful week. I'll see you soon. Bye.